Flatlandia, Chapter 7, Scientism on its Heels. Bill Nye invites flat earthers to drive to the edge of the earth. Is scientism circling the wagons? In April of 2017, Bill Nye did a flurry of PR, including doubling down on April 19, 2017, by co-authoring an article entitled How to Shut Down Flat Earthers, According to Bill Nye, on Inverse.com, and doing a radio interview on the Elvis Duran show, which aired the same day, wherein Nye says, quote, "Hey, flat earth people, I tell you what, get a car, rent a car, and drive to the edge of the earth. Send us some pictures," end quote. This is hilarious for a few reasons. First off, cars can't go to Antarctica. Only boats and planes can. So suggesting the rental of a vehicle to inspect the so-called edge is inherently implausible. Secondly, exploration further south than the 66th degree of southern latitude is monitored by the United Nations and the teeth of the Antarctic Peace Treaty, signed December 1st, 1959, just a few years after the formation of NASA. So essentially, Bill implies by this flat earthers should rent a car, turn it into a boat, and drive through a region monitored by an international navy, get into Antarctica, and then simply convert the boat back to a car and continue driving across the snow to the edge of the earth, and when they get there to send some pictures. In the article he chirps, "Snap a photo at the edge, come back and post it on the internet while they wait." Though Bill Nye didn't mention Antarctica or the no-fly zone, there must be a part of a journey to the theoretical edge which everyone knows, if it exists, would be some distance southward. Bill's invitation seems to imply a friendly disposition towards such an exploration. Does that then mean his cohorts at NASA seeking to colonize Mars may be happy to grant a south-bearing charter to navigate beyond the 66th line of latitude as a sovereign vessel in pursuit of this illusory edge? If so, we'll wait. In the same article, Nye points out that, quote, "Anti-vaxxers, chemtrail enthusiasts, and NASA moon landing conspirators are notoriously difficult to engage with in rational dialogue, but the flat earthers are arguably the most difficult to debate with because their claims are so wildly off base," end quote. Just the fact that Bill Nye would co-author an article which mentions NASA moon landing conspirators, chemtrail enthusiasts, and anti-vaxxers is unprecedented. Simply mentioning anti-vaxxers and NASA moon landing conspirators as less wildly off base than flat earthers gives some credit to the truther components that moved many people into flat earth. Research into vaccinations and the moon landings, the latter mentioned in a previous chapter, are a well-known gateway truther drug. Drugs. In an onslaught of scientism PR, Nye mentioned on an interview on NPR April 22nd, 2017, that he was concerned that the march would look like a political party. Well, good reason for such concerns, for scientism functions as a political party. Interestingly, the incredibly dark and seemingly overly satanic artist Tyler, the Creator of Odd Future, did the title track for Bill Nye Saves the World and is, quote, "a self-professed longtime fan," end quote. What a strangely fitting alliance. This promo on Tyler's YouTube between the two of them is kind of awkward. Despite atheists in a full-court press to save their positioning, enlisting young rap phenoms and putting out Netflix specials, flat earthers are now being referenced by the science guy as notoriously difficult to debate with. However, the only skills of debate he showed on his radio appearance were ad hominem attack. He made fun of a woman for saying "like" too much instead of replying to her question directly. Referencing a vehicle that could never achieve what he asked you to do with it, rent a car and drive to the edge of the earth. And if not that, obtaining a position in a space agency to go up and look for yourself. Just for the record, on either side of this overall Earth-shaped debate, it doesn't seem that anyone rationally questions that a journey southward beyond the lines of the Antarctic Treaty would be what was necessary in order to investigate the existence of a theoretical edge, and that everybody knows you can't take a rental car there. Yet, later on in the show, Bill returned to the same point about driving to the edge, despite the fact that one of the hosts had already rebutted him with a question about access to Antarctica only 4 minutes prior. He answered a caller named Froggy by saying, quote, "Here's our goal in science, is that you don't have to take anybody's word for it, that you can run a test yourself and determine that the Earth is round. Try driving to the edge. Let's start with that." End quote. It's like he's running computer software that doesn't update or something. If it's all about a test we can do for ourselves, why are you asking us to rent a car and drive to the edge when only boats and planes go to Antarctica? How is that every man's repeatable science? Isn't asking the young lady to go up into space and look down tantamount to asking her to take an astronaut's word for it? Don't the very 2 points he enumerated, get a car or go up in space, run contrary to the goal he purports his science aspires to? That of not having to take anybody's word for it? That of a kind of test which one could run for themselves? When he had initially replied to the argument against being able to drive to the edge, he did so, as mentioned, with ad hominem attack, literally by making fun of the woman's verbiage and impersonating her while saying, "Okay, so here's my concern. You couldn't actually hit it, you'd hit like a wall," end quote. And then instead of addressing her point about the physical barrier Antarctica poses, he switched his tact and says, "I'm very sympathetic to the point of view, but what would be better is to get in a spacecraft and look down. Wow," end quote. So instead of discussing the issue raised, he just asked her to become an astronaut and get in a rocket that goes to space. Seems kind of evasive, doesn't it? Tucker Carlson gives Bill Nye a good dressing down on settled science, which is nice. With respect to actually going to the edge, I can think of a few wealthy flat earthers, possibly someone like Kyrie Irving, who makes $17.64 million per NBA season, who might charter a flight southward beyond the 66th line of latitude. As long as we're on the topic of chartering flights, it would be far easier to go due east-west along the Tropic of Capricorn to prove a significantly larger circumference at 23.5 degrees below the equator than 23.5 degrees above the equator at the Tropic of Cancer. My conjecture is that the circumnavigational distance due east-west along the Tropic of Capricorn would be appreciably larger than the 25,000 miles at the equator, and to such a degree that the mere 26 miles of oblateness and, quote, the height of Mount Everest above sea level, end quote, of pear-shapedness attributed to the southern hemisphere would be a far cry from accounting for it. Before we duck out of this scientism chapter, let's take a moment to consider how one could debunk an astrophysicist. Astrophysicist Neil Tyson tweeted out last year to rapper B.O.B. that Polaris is, quote, gone by 1.5 degrees south latitude, end quote. 1 degree of the Earth's circumference is approximately 70 miles, so 1.5 degrees equals about 105 miles. Some flat Earth theorists claim Polaris can be seen from as far south as the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degrees. That's approximately 1,645 miles below the equator. This is a huge discrepancy. Other people claim that, quote, the Southern Cross, end quote, can be seen from as far north as 23.5 degrees north latitude. If this be the case, the tweet below from Tyson's Twitter account stands to be debunked. But until we have conclusive proof of an image of Polaris from 1.5 degrees south latitude, 105 miles below equator, or lower, for example, 2 degrees south latitude, 3 degrees south latitude, etc., we have no evidence to prove Tyson's claim is inaccurate. Furthermore, the disappearance of Polaris from a particular degree of southern latitude doesn't guarantee a globe or flat model, as either can account for the effect if the stars are much closer than we've suspected. With that said, time-stamped video footage of Polaris from sea level at or below 1.5 degrees south latitude would debunk the world's leading astrophysicists' claim that the Earth's curve occludes Polaris from view at that point on the map. So, flat earthers located in Peru, Brazil, Tanzania, or Indonesia, you are in a prime position to debunk an astrophysicist. I'd recommend including in the video of Polaris a geotagged lat-long reading from a phone that gets powered up on camera, and including a reading from an altimeter to indicate altitude, which would ideally be sea level. Below is a chart of cities beginning at 2 degrees south latitude or more that are in a perfect latitudinal position to possibly debunk Mr. Tyson's claim. Get your screenshot. Generally speaking, anything from Ecuador or lower in South America, anything in sub-Saharan Africa, and anything in Indonesia or lower would all make the case. That means you, Ecuador, Brazil, Tanzania, and Indonesia, Bandang. Consider this the first Flat Earth challenge. I eagerly await someone lower than 1.5 degrees south latitude to show me proof of an ability to see Polaris. More recently, on April 21st, 2017, astro actor Neil Tyson tweets again, this time to no one and everyone in particular, basically that it's cool to think the Earth is flat so long as you don't work for NASA. He wrote, concerned that flat earthers don't ascend to the head of NASA, end quote. Honestly, Neil, do you think flat earthers are seeking gainful employment with NASA? Even for a smart guy like you, that's well beyond low Earth orbit. This has been Chapter 7 of Flatlandia. If you enjoy what you hear, consider following the link in the description below to purchase a digital copy of the book with over 200 plus embedded links of research and investigation. You're listening to Spiritual North. Thanks for tuning in.